Përdorimi i inteligjencës artificiale daton qysh nga vitet e 50-ta dhe ka parë disa faza të zhvillimit që nga kompjuteret e parë, tek Siri e Alexa, e deri tek revolucioni më i ri, ChatGPT. Shtetet e Bashkuara të Amerikës janë lider të zhvillimit të teknologjisë së tillë, dhe termi u përdor për herë të parë në vitet 50 nga humbtuesi John McCarthy gjatë konferencës së Dartmouth. Në vitet 90 ishin në trend makinat që mësojnë, ku kompjuterët mësojnë nga të dhënat që marrin në vend të rregullave të paraprogramuara. Por pjesë e jetës së përditshme, AI u bë vetëm në vitet 2020, kur u lansua ChatGPT nga ana e OpenAI, si mënyrë për të ndihmuar për të dhënë përgjigje në shumë sfera. Në Shtetet e Bashkuara të Amerikës, AI përdoret në shumë fusha, kurse ne eksplorojmë disa prej tyre, si media, qeverisje, arsim, shëndetësi dhe drejtësi. Bostoni është një prej qendrave më të rëndësishme amerikane të edukimit dhe zhvillimit. Kryeqyteti i Massachusetts është ndër të parët që ka integruar AI në formën e shërbimeve për qytetarët, siç e ka bërë edhe Austin në Texas. Inteligjenca artificiale përdoret gjithashtu edhe në qeverisje.
So we have been piloting and building some tools. The first one that we did was, actually we have a lot of content on our website that sometimes is a little bit difficult to consume for residents. So we had been working on building summaries of the council, the city council, which is our legislative body. It creates, it votes on different measures. But the thing that they voted on is usually written in a way that is a little bit difficult to understand. So we're creating 20-word summaries of the items that the council voted on. And that allows us to actually create a better web experience for people. So it's not a chatbot, but it's creating these summaries that enable us to build a better website. So we are actually, our work, we think that it is good, but it is not good enough. We had about a 73% success rate in generating accurate summaries. But again, even the fact that we're having to think and create ways to measure and test the quality and the accuracy of the content on the website is like an innovation in of itself.
So a couple examples of how we're utilizing AI within the city of Austin includes through our 311 app. That is a platform where constituents, residents of Austin can log in to file complaints if there's a pothole in the street. If the trash was not picked up that morning, they can go into that app, file that complaint. And what we've seen with AI is by just a constituent providing a type of description of what the complaint is or the service is or the request is, AI can quickly analyze and route it to the appropriate department rather than relying on the constituent to understand and say, okay, this type of incident, this type of service request needs to go to the Public Works Department versus the Transportation Department. We're utilizing AI to more efficiently route those service requests. We've also seen it in our street management. The City of Austin with Cap Metro, which is our public transportation provider, they're utilizing pedestrian signal sensors to be able to notify drivers if there is a pedestrian in the roadway, or at least provide some type of notification if there is activity in the sensor right away. The third way that we're utilizing AI, and one that I'm actually really excited about, because here in Texas, we've had an influx of AV, autonomous vehicles, coming into our cities, and these companies, they're unregulated. So they can come in, they can drop these AV vehicles into our cities, and these vehicles that are, robot driven, with the technology that they are capturing so much information, so much data. So think about these AVs have cameras all over their vehicle, so they can see when there needs to be a repainting of a crosswalk. They can see if there is an obstruction in the sidewalk. And we want to work with them in capturing that information so that the city can quickly respond and address that issue.
So the Governance Lab very simply works with governments around the world on strategies for using technology to change how we work in government. The goal ultimately is to improve how we work so that government can make policy better, deliver services faster, and ultimately serve people. And that's what we do. Well, we work with governments all around the world at every level, federal, state, and local. We work with people who are innovators, or what's sometimes called public entrepreneurs, people who are willing to explore what are the ways we can work differently in government. So how can we adopt digital technologies, including AI? How can we use more data to change how we work? And also, how can we adopt new ways of working? That is to say, more open and more collaborative with the public, not simply behind closed doors, the way government has done in the past. We don't only work with governments to do that, we also work with businesses, which hold a lot of the data that we can use to solve problems. We work with civil society and community groups who have the wisdom and the expertise and the desire to get involved.
Inteligjenca artificiale po zëvend të rëndësishëm përdorimi edhe në media, edhe pse ende ka rezistencë dhe paralajmërim natyrisht se për çka do në këtë fushë, në fund duhet ajo që quhet prekje njerëzore. Derisa ende ka rezistencë, gjithashtu ka paralajmërim për keq përdorimin e AI për të shtuar dezinformimin.
Yeah, so AI is not something new for the news industry. It's been used for over a decade, starting with the Associated Press back in 2013, 2014. They started having robots writing articles, and by that I mean they started automating all of their financial earnings reports. So that went from over 300 companies that human journalists would have to write articles about. Because they automated it, they were able to have more than 3,000 articles coming out per quarter. That means more companies were getting covered, there was more coverage happening, and human journalists, instead of writing those kind of like rote, repetitive articles on like what earnings reports were, they were able to focus more on the analysis and investigation and making sense of meaning of the data, which is where the analytical capabilities of journalists are so much in demand. And so AI and robots writing, the computers writing an article is not something new. What is new now is the advent of generative AI specifically. This is the technology like ChatGPT. It has made AI very accessible for a lot of people to use it. You can just go onto ChatGPT now and tell ChatGPT to write a news article like the New York Times, and it will write it. That's different because the AP had to put significant time and effort and resources to build out their automated earnings report. And that's why generative AI is the big hype right now. That's why a lot of the news industry is looking at it so carefully. But with generative AI comes a lot of opportunities for the industry as a whole. It's made it accessible, so that means small newsrooms can use AI at scale. You don't need to be having this huge tech and dev team. There are a lot of small experiments that newsrooms across the globe right now are implementing and trying out to see how they can use AI.
There's a lack of understanding, I think, about how content is used to train AI. As far as I'm concerned, under copyright, that is what we call fair use. It is an appropriate use. It's also transformative. It doesn't quote directly. It's an appropriate use. Now, that's not to say that there isn't an opportunity for news in AI to license their content, because AI is stale and doesn't know what facts are and doesn't have a sense of meaning. And so I think that the news industry would be smart to create what we call an API, a mechanism to share that news and get paid for it, and that's fine. What they're doing instead is saying, you can't even read our content, even if it's online for free, unless you license it to us.
For them. So I wouldn't do that. I would just, I tried. So first would say, like, AI is invariably helpful in many ways in modern life, right? And it enables all sorts of things that weren't possible before. Let's just stipulate, in many ways AI is good. From the perspective of the health of the information ecosystem, it's pretty unfortunate and has had a number of deleterious effects. In part for some of the reasons I've already mentioned, that it can make worse the problem of providing people with what they want to hear as opposed to what they might need to hear. And it can do, and generative AI allows this to be done relatively cheaply at scale and in a micro-targeted way. Not that these things weren't possible before, but AI kind of, I would say it serves as we would say in security studies lingo, as a pretty effective force multiplier.
This is a spring. I mentioned the AI winter. This is definitely AI spring, maybe summer. And I have always felt AI is incredibly powerful. And what's happening now is it's being expanded in many fields, but there's a long history there, which should give people some comfort. But at the same time, these are new applications, and there are some risks that are involved when it's applied to a new area. But those will sort. What are the main risks? So, every technology is usually a two-edged sword. And when calculators, electronic calculators, first became available, teachers were worried that children would not learn math. But and they do need to, but calculators, computers, word processors, digital photography does, like any technology, allows you to evolve. But there is a bad side that often comes with it. And therefore, I do think that regulation is a responsible way to do things. And actually, Europe is far ahead of any other region in the world in terms of regulation, which I think makes sense. The regulation that's needed isn't that complex. It's really about transparency. The ability that when a decision is being made by an automated entity, that information is available. And I think that will be the norm. I think Europe's example will probably lead the world. And I think it will calm down a lot of the anxiety that people have about AI.
Ndër format më të vjetra të përdorimit të AI është ajo me robot. Në Boston, në laboratorin e Tufts University, robotët mësojnë të kryejnë një sër detyrash dhe edhe mund të zëvendësojnë disa punë që konsiderohen të bajatshme për njerëzit.
Well, we're interested in two different aspects. One is developing a cognitive robotic architecture that allows robots to perform tasks and oftentimes in interactions with humans. And the second aspect is we take cognitive systems on robots and we evaluate how these interactions work. So we do experiments with people interacting with robots, and then we see how effective the mechanisms that we built and the AI tools are. So this is an example of a robot that can be taught in natural language how to perform tasks. The task in this particular case might be an assembly task. So there are different items in different locations on these tables. And what the robot's supposed to do is grab items from different locations and put them in the caddy, in the green caddy over there. And so what we're working on is specifically how you can instruct these kinds of tasks, how the robot can then very quickly learn from the instructions how to do it, and how you can potentially on the fly modify the task that it's performing. So you can imagine this being used in a variety of different contexts. So one might be just industrial manufacturing and assembly. There might be kitting tasks, where you have to stack things into boxes. This could also be in a kitchen, where you have to assemble different meals and plates and put items on a plate. That concerns us here a lot. And one thing to think about is that there's still lots and lots of jobs that humans perform that are very monotonous, they're very boring, and they're potentially very dangerous. And so we want to eliminate those jobs. For example, stacking things all day long, right? Putting shoes in shoe boxes all day long, 8 hours straight, no pause, right? Machines can do that. Sorting garbage and sorting recyclables, machines can do that. So there's lots of these kinds of applications where we can actually free up human labor to do other things that humans would prefer to do, and where that plays more to the strength that humans have, being creative and so forth. So the hope here is that robots will also be able to take over jobs that we're currently not able to do in the US because labor is too expensive.
And most of the control labs, they also have like quadruped.
Edhe në Universitetin e Texasit në Austin ekziston departamenti i inxhinierisë mekanike, ku Michael Kassman na tregon funksione të ndryshme të robotëve, duke përfshirë ndihmën që mund të japin në një sallë operacioni. AI po përdoret edhe në sistemin e drejtësisë për të ndihmuar punën e gjykatave, por edhe për të negociuar kontrata për kompani të ndryshme.
I work for a company called Praktikat. It's been around for about 5 years, and we do autonomous negotiations. We use AI for autonomous negotiations on behalf of some of the world's largest companies with their suppliers. So companies like Walmart and Maersk, they use AI, our AI, to send out bots, thousands of simultaneous bots that can negotiate contracts with suppliers. So this is collaborative AI between bots on one side and humans on the other side negotiating contracts. Because the problem is that usually at large enterprises, most suppliers don't get given the chance to negotiate their contracts. They just get given standard terms that are rolled over that are suboptimal for both sides. So now actually we have AI going out to them and saying, how can we make our deal better? What do you value? What can we give you more, and what can you give us more? So it's unlocking more value. So this is bot to human negotiations that are taking place, and it's been taking place over the last 5 years. The next stage is bot to bot negotiations.
I think right now the legal industry is very excited about the promise of AI. I mean, when you think about what AI can do as a practical matter, generative AI in particular is so good at analyzing documents and summarizing them, extracting text and insights. And so everyone right now is trying to figure out, what does this mean for the legal profession? How can we actually use these tools in a way that will help us become better lawyers or do our jobs more efficiently? So some of the interesting use cases we're seeing are really based on text analytics, so understanding legal documents, making them more accessible, helping understand certain arguments or counter-arguments to those documents. But for me personally, I think some of the most interesting use cases are about understanding evidence. So what are the documents that we're relying on to make legal conclusions, and how do we evaluate the strength and the weakness of those documents to our arguments? It can really help us go through, lawyers deal with millions of documents, helps us understand really how powerful those documents are for our arguments and how to use them better or understand documents the other side is using in a litigation context.
Is it being used in the courtrooms?
That's a good question. I think some judges are experimenting with how to use AI. I don't think it's widespread yet, but certainly, we speak quite a lot to judges in the judiciary about the promise of AI, and everyone is really interested right now in how to use these technologies to sharpen our work or to make our work more efficient. And I think the judiciary is thinking about these issues, even if they're not fully deploying these tools yet.
Ndër risit më mrekulluese janë makinat pa shofer, që përdoren kryesisht në Kalifornia dhe në Arizona, por që sipas ekspertit të komunikacionit përballet me shumë sfida.
I think when we're talking about autonomous vehicles, it is how does an autonomous vehicle relate to a human? That's been the big challenge, and artificial intelligence can help that. Right now, we send lots of signals when we're a pedestrian, for example, to a car. We're looking for making eye contact for the car. But the pedestrian in New York is different than the pedestrian in Los Angeles. So the car has to learn through artificial intelligence where it is and what is the typical behavior. In New York, the typical behavior is we don't follow the traffic lights. We look at the driver, see if the driver sees us. We'll then walk in front of the car and cross. In Los Angeles, they're looking at, does it say don't walk? And they will stay on the corner. It says walk, and they're not looking at the driver at all. So artificial intelligence offers a lot, particularly in the area of vehicular safety and also saving time. Yeah, right now autonomous vehicles are being tested as robo-taxis in a few places. San Francisco is one place, Tempe, Arizona is another place, Phoenix, where the weather is usually good. They don't get snow. The lines, the painted lines to let the traffic know it is well maintained. But we even see some lessons that one wouldn't think of if someone was sitting down and saying, what are all the things an autonomous car has to learn? The intelligence system of an autonomous car. For example, in San Francisco, a cruise car was driving, a robo-taxi. A woman was hit by another car that had nothing to do with the cruise car. She landed underneath the cruise car, it stopped. And then it continued and dragged her for another 20 feet. Now that's such an unusual occurrence. What would a normal driver do?
AI përdoret edhe në ekonomi në forma të ndryshme, por shumë njerëz ende fokusohen më shumë në rreziqet sesa përparësitë e përdorimit të teknologjisë së re.
One of the people I know has a marketing firm, and he used to employ 3 copywriters. He now employs 2 copywriters because with the use of AI, they're able to do more in a short amount of time. However, he doesn't want them using AI to write. He wants to use AI as prompts. He wants them to use it to fine-tune what they've written, to look for what they've missed. So I think when you look at AI, it's not to replace the people, it's to make the people more efficient. And so, yeah, I think it's a positive for companies. I think it will do that, but at the same time, more opportunities will be created. If we go back hundreds of years to the Industrial Revolution, you know, mechanics came out, the assembly line came out, machinery came out, and everybody thought, oh my gosh, you know, you now have tractors, it's going to replace the farmhands. Well, no, it replaced some, it made people more efficient, but then what it really did is it created the people to be able to be more efficient with the tools they're using, and new jobs appeared, right? So I think there's going to be jobs that exist in 5 years because of AI that never existed. So I think for people who are in like, you know, high school now or younger, I think the jobs they're going to have when they're 25 and 30 years old, many of those jobs haven't even been envisioned yet. And we've seen this before. I mean, look at some of the jobs that exist in companies now. 20 years ago, many companies, especially smaller companies, didn't have an IT department. Now every company that has, you know, 20, 30, 40 or more people has to have someone who handles all the IT.
So, I mean, look, we've all seen the movie Terminator and we've seen how scary it can be, right? But that's an extreme. This is our opportunity to be responsible. And what is responsible? It is creating pathways for folks to understand and to simplify mundane tasks so people can be people together, so that we can spend time where it matters most, which is with our friends and our families. That we can use this opportunity to be innovative, to take these mundane tasks out the way and really focus on what is going to generate more for us, right? And what does that mean? That means more time. That needs more resources, so that way we can spend it where it really matters. And that's one of the things that we learned during our time with COVID, right? And AI is the way. One of the ways, right? Obviously, as tech moves forward, we find different ways to simplify it, but when we're looking specifically at AI and the opportunities it grants not only businesses, but certainly families. If you have an iPhone, that's AI. Every time you say, hey Siri. When you go home and if you have an Alexa, that's also AI. So we already started to use it. So now to see what and where we can expand on it in the state side and the government side, it's simplifying things within agencies so that way we can focus on things and we can actually build better. So that way over a dinner table, we can talk about what AI really does do, what we can do with it, while at the same time understanding there are risks, right? We're not going to be 100% naive. There's risk to everything. But for us, when we're talking about our intentions, our goals, that's where we need to focus, and what does that mean? So it is looking at different businesses and enterprises and seeing what does responsible AI look like within this business and that business, whether it's transportation, whether it is, where else can we talk about, like development, right? Developing buildings and whatnot. Where can we use it to bring good back, right? And it is an opportunity to find solutions And that's what we should be focusing on. And so where those solutions bring back better jobs, bring back more money into our economy, and more importantly, it brings us time and moments to where we need to expend it, which is, I'm always going to talk about friends and family because that is what our goal is, right? It's simplifying things to a way that we can build back our communities.
Inteligjenca artificiale ishte e dobishme edhe në kohën e COVID-19, kurse ndër mënyra tjera të dobishme të përdorimit është edhe paralajmërimi I tërmeteve apo edhe I zjarreve, siç e bëjnë në Austin.
For example, in healthcare, we used AI a few years ago during the pandemic. There was a global testing shortage. So most testing was done with a PCR machine, and these PCR machines can be very expensive, especially for like third world countries. So we engineered a protein that allowed for you to do DNA amplification for the COVID-19 virus at a single temperature. So that's huge because that's very important for like low resource diagnostics, where you don't have like a $5,000 instrument, these thermocyclers, but you do have like something that can hold a constant temperature. Think of like a stove, right? Or any way where you can just keep the temperature the same. That allowed you to use this protein to do COVID-19 diagnostics in under 20 minutes. So we engineered this protein with AI.
So we use artificial intelligence and big data analysis to study earthquake. Specifically, we use AI to predict the occurrence of earthquake. For example, we predict whether an earthquake will happen in the next week. If there is an earthquake happening next week, we predict the magnitude and the location. And if there is no earthquake happening next week, we don't predict the earthquake.
One project that we've been able to implement here is Pano AI, which is an early warning smoke detection system. So what it is it's using high definition cameras that we placed on high points around the city, around the county. So each one of these is a camera, and we have 5 up right now, and we're in the process of putting a total of 13 up that cover the entire Travis County and in our service territory. And these high definition cameras look out over the landscape, the view shed, and they pick up any little smoke out that's detected out there. And once you get a smoke, like you can see the blue ones here are basically the first detection. And then when they go through the AI system, AI will look at that and try to figure out what kind of smoke that is. And if it thinks that it could possibly be a wildfire, it'll then go to an alert. And when it gets to alert stage, it goes to actually a call center that Pano AI has, and a human will actually verify that. And once that human verifies it, they'll hit the button and it'll alert. And for us, it alerts us here at Austin Energy, but it also alerts the 911 call center. And so when 911 gets the call, they can look at it and know exactly where that fire is and then send the appropriate fire station and apparatus to that fire that's out there. So you can see this here. So we have 3 smoke alerts, and we have our smoke investigations and 2 alerts. And so if you go over, you can click on one of them. And then this is the actual live camera feed from that alert. And you can see that it's picked up, and that little red triangle there shows where it is. And I'll replay it for you. And so when that smoke first was picked up by the cameras, the AI technology will go through and say that it is a smoke. It'll look at it, and then it can tell if it's a smog, if it's a reflection off a building, if it's industrial smoke, or if it actually is that wildfire. So it thinks that this could be a possible wildfire, so it alerts on it. And then the 911 system can look at that, and they can come in and look at it and zoom in and zoom out to take a look to see if they need to alert to it.
Viti 2025 pritet të jetë vit shumë I rëndësishëm, kur AI do të vijë akoma më shumë pranë secilit prej nesh nëpërmjet platformave të ndryshme.